is it really that the customer just has plenty of disposable cash?
No, I think, what we see in our business is that, there's a wide divergence between winners and losers. And Cava's winning because they're providing guests with a good value for their money, with a good experience, right? Like the value equation, which is what you get for what you pay, is being hit by places like Cava, Chili's, right? We're also seeing places like Wingstop and some other chains that we cover struggle mightily right now. So there's really a big divergence between winners and losers. And so it's hard to discern, consumer spending overall based on one chain's results.
I get to break her. I know you got to make the sales pitch to Bonnie to go to Chili's for her first time ever. But let me ask you about Cyclist 4. Cava not affected by this, but it raises this broader question about how companies that have to navigate a perception or a fear that it might be something that consumers have to contend with.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was a little bit of impact on Cava, but sales have rebounded to the mid-single digits. I think part of it is how much lettuce is on your menu, right? And that's kind of been what a lot of these chains have been battling. Sweetgreen obviously sells a lot of salad, so that's been most
from hard hats to steel-toed boots.
But these problems, salmonella as well, haven't been due to the chain's food handling procedures. It's really been about supply, in the supply chain, and because of that, we think they're going to be generally short-lived.
Talk to us a little bit about Chili's. So also, nice positive trends there. What's Chili's doing that's so attractive?
Oh, the management team's phenomenal. Best-in-class marketing. The marketing team has been great. This year, a lot of it, better operations was early on in this turnaround. This year, it's been about improving the food quality. They continue to invest in improving the quality of the food, improving different popular menu items, and it's really driven stronger same-store sales there.
So are we going to see more sweet fruits paired with proteins for next season?
For Cava, for sure, I would expect.
For mango, something or other. Did they give us any hints?
Yeah, I think they did, but to be honest with you, it escapes me. It's been a long earnings season.
Whatever it is, I'm sure it'll be delicious. Michael, thank you so much. That is Michael Halen of Bloomberg Intelligence. Let's get a check on these markets now. 4 minutes before the opening bell, it's going to be an update for the Nasdaq, pointing to gains of more than 1%. Another update for the S&P. You might even see a record after 2 days of very small declines. And then no trouble really in the 10-year yield at 465.57. Remember, we have that auction at 1 p.m.
Hello, my name is Dr. Paul Cottrell. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. We're going to go over the news, especially what happened last night in the primaries and how the markets are reacting to the tumultuous times that we're in, especially in the Middle East. And inflation information came out today. So we're going to go over that too. Thank you for joining. Please help support the work that I do by sharing the links and asking your social media to follow me. You can follow me on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble, TikTok, Substack, Patreon, GETTR, X, many modalities. You can also follow my work on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. So please help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. So I need your help. Please help support. With that, we're going to go over the market is just about ready to open. The futures market is signaling that we're going to be opening up higher. Futures market's at 7,792, and the market will be opening up in less than a minute. Oil is trading at 82.91. right now, there's a trading range because there's no peace agreement between $80 to approximately $88 or so. But right now we're trading just below 83. Bitcoin's trading at 64,000. The euro is trading at 115. Japanese yen is trading at 158.84. As you know, last week there was intervention between the BOJ and the Federal Reserve to strengthen the yen. That intervention has subsided somewhat. Now the markets are open. So that intervention has subsided and the yen is weakening again. Not as weak as it was before. It was at around 163 and the yen went down to about 150, 156. Now it's trading just below 159. And that's normal when there's intervention in the market. It doesn't last for very long. Now, natural gas is trading at 2.809, and the equities for the S&P 500 is trading at 7,761. For ones that have been paying attention to me, I have a year-end target of 7,800. Now, that doesn't mean we won't hit a higher number, but I think that the year-end target will be 7,800. Some individuals, especially JP Morgan, think that we're going to be at 8,000. I thought so too. Couple weeks ago, a few months ago, I was having that target of 7,800 to 8,000. I'm a little concerned about the overinvestment in tech. There was a sell-off in July with semiconductors and tech, and there was also sell-off in the broader market, the S&P 500. But because of some of these new deals that are happening and individuals looking at the situation, are the servers, these server farms that are being built out, are they slowing down in terms of orders or in terms of activity or in terms of build out? The answer is no. So there's this reinvestment back into these tech stocks, AI stocks. So if you take a look at SSG Semiconductor short ETF, it's a leveraged short for ETF. It's trading at 1135 right now. The trading range was around 1150 to 1250. Because of these new deals that NVIDIA are doing, being backed by debt, and Goldman Sachs is tied to it, BlackRock's tied to it, I believe SoftBank is too. But there's additional investment going back into tech and AI. So this is going to ride for a little while. But don't be fooled. This is really a slight reversal of the overselling in tech, the perception of overselling in tech in July. And there are institutional and retail investors going back into tech. But don't be fooled. This is a bubble. Reason being is that the overall business model for the AI companies such as OpenAI and Anthropic cannot make money. It's predicated on being able to borrow to continue the build out. Now, there's an incentive for the banks to do this. One, they make some money by underwriting debt. But also these banks like Goldman Sachs, they help with the underwriting. And so they help with the issuing of the debt. But they also have a group of people in the trading floor that in the near term, they're buying back tech stocks in the near term. But just a month ago, they were selling tech stocks. So these banks like Goldman Sachs, they're going to benefit from this volatility that they're creating. So when there is another tech sell-off, Goldman Sachs is going to have a lot of trading revenue, and the same thing with JP Morgan. So there's a nuance here that people don't understand. So the tech's going to start to rally. People are going to get, oh my God, market's going to go up and it's going to creep up to 8,000. I personally think that you should start between the 7,700 to 8,000 mark. Start moving a little bit of your gains into cash. You want about anywhere from 5 to 10% at around this moment in time. Why? Because if there is a correction, you'll be able to put that cash back into the market. So do not sell everything, but you want to be at about 90% in equity, broad index equities, and around 10% in cash. At about right now. Right now, last week what I did was I moved about 8%, 7 to 8% in cash. As we get closer to the 8,000 mark, which is, it might happen, right? But once we hit 7,800, I'm probably going to put a little bit more in cash. I want to be at around 10 to 15% by year end, because I think in Q1, there's going to be a correction. And that correction may be a 15% reduction of the S&P 500, more in the NASDAQ because that's tech. But just look at this from the broad index point of view. You want to Warren Buffett this, all right? What would Warren Buffett do? Warren Buffett would basically, as the market's going up, he's putting aside a little cash, but still has a lot of positions. So you want about 10% in cash. And if you really, think that there's going to be a, market downturn, that's really heavy, like a 20% downturn, you may want more than 10% in cash. Now, the support levels of the S&P 500 are really simple. We're right now at a temporary support level of 7,600. Right now, we're trading at 7,757. We're probably going to hit 7,800 before we hit the 7,600 again. So there's a support level at 7,600, but it's not that strong. There's a stronger one at 7,200. And there's another strong support level because as the market's creeping up, the retracement numbers are changing, and it's just above 700. So around 700 is a major support level because it coincides with the Fib sequence, the Fibonacci retracement. So those are your support levels. And depending if that happens, that's when you start putting in your cash back into the market. At 7,200, put a little bit in cash. Put a little bit of that cash that you had set aside back into the market. It hits 7,000, bam. Put in probably the remainder of your cash. But you stage it. Just like you're staging it out, you want to stage it back in. And I think safe about 10% in cash is good to get that upswing when the market starts to mean revert. So just pay attention to this. In the short term, tech probably will start to rally and the broader index will rally. We have a low VIX, it's 1491. We haven't had a blip on VIX for a little while. It should be coming the third week of this month, maybe the end of the month. And maybe that's when we hit 7,600 again. I suspect that VIX will pop like close to 20 or above, probably the third week, maybe the fourth week of August. So that's my overall take of the market. Please help support the work that I do by getting the great products that I offer. They will help to slow down the aging process. These are products that I take every day. And they're very high quality, extremely high quality. Detoxifying your body is super important. I have zeolite, which will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. This zeolite you can take every day. Some people take zeolite every day. Some people prefer a heavier detox and do that once or twice a year. So for the ones that want to do it every day, take 3 small drops of zeolite underneath your tongue, small drops, 3 small drops, drink the filtered water. Do that every day. Again, this zeolite you can take every day. Some people zeolite you can't, but this you can. Now, if you want a heavier detox, take 5 to 10 small drops underneath your tongue, drink the filtered water, do that every day until the bottle's done, do that once or twice a year. So depends on if you want a heavier detox or a maintenance detox. I recommend the maintenance detox. Now, I also have heirloom barley. Now, heirloom barley brings down inflammation, soaks up free radicals through superoxide dismutase, and detoxifies your body. So this is another great way to detoxify your body. This is a month supply. You mix it with soft foods like hummus or yogurt. You can mix it in a smoothie or with milk. Sometimes I make iced coffee and mix it with the iced coffee. So it's a great way to keep that inflammation down, soak up those free radicals, and detoxify your body. And by doing that, you're going to improve your endocrine system, your immune system, even your cardiovascular system, because if you're soaking up free radicals and bringing down inflammation, you have less plaque formation. And by bringing down inflammation in your joints, you're helping with joint health. And by bringing down inflammation at the brain level, what you're doing is keeping those neurons healthy, and the myelin sheath around the axons are healthier, so they will communicate better. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the heirloom barley. It's a great way to detoxify your body, and you get those added benefits. You're soaking up those free radicals, and you're bringing down inflammation. That's overall for your body very important. So please go to my store, use discount 5, and you get $5 off any order. The link is in the description of this video. It's very simple. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get healthy. These are supplements that I take every day. They are very high quality. If you pay attention to what I have to say, you will make money in the market and you will get healthy. Very simple. All right, with that, let's listen into the CPI inflation data that came in. It came in as expected. Before we do that, I want to play Ed Zitron. He's going to be talking about NVIDIA and how unprofitable the AI labs are. So before we do the inflation data, let's play Ed Zitron. Ed Zitron is the go-to guy in terms of proving that the AI business model doesn't make sense. And this is the reason why I keep on saying there's a bubble that's coming. But not just that, Ed is focused on the whole financing of the AI trend. I'm looking at this even at a larger lens, a much larger perspective. There is a curse that's coming on 9/11/2026. It's metaphysical, it has a religious component to it, but you can see that if you look at politics, you look at finance, you look at what's going on with our food supply, you look at people's health, you look at the wars that are happening in the world, you can see that there's an emergent property that's taking place, that things could be tumultuous for the next 2 years. So from 9/11/2026 to roughly about the beginning of October of 2028, we're going to have problems. Economic problems, food supply problems, health problems. People need to pay attention. And I've been saying this for over a year and trying to tell people that if we don't do certain things, that by the time 9/11/2026 happens, if those key milestones aren't met before then, bad things are going to happen. All right, so let's listen to Ep71.
Latest AI financing initiative with Wall Street heavyweights and Jensen Huang's subsequent attempts to alleviate concerns over circular financing. Our next guest says the new initiative is vendor financing by proxy. Ep71 is the CEO of PZ Primary Research and host of the Better Offline podcast. Ed, good to see you.
Good to be here.
So you don't think this alleviates the concerns about circular financing?
No, this fund, which is, by the way, still a memorandum of understanding, we do not actually have contracts, it's just vendor financing. NVIDIA is raising the funding, they're finding the customers, they're the vendor, they're the customer in some cases with CoreWeave, they're a large customer with Lambda. They basically pay people to rent back the GPUs that they sell them, they help raise the debt, they find the sites. It's vendor financing, but they've been smarter than the Ciscos and the Lucents in the past by not actually becoming a bank.
Well, and I think that's an important part in that the financiers.
Now, the genius of my show, the genius of stuff that I talk about, I pick up on patterns. I have a very special gift of pattern recognition that most people don't have. Now, what did he just say? I haven't heard this video yet, but you'll see that I picked up on something in seconds. In seconds. Let's rewind. He talks about Lucent. Now, it's very important that things happen in a pattern, a fib sequence. And that arc could be a 30-year arc, a 50-year arc, 400-year arc. So the United States is going off on a tangent, just a small tangent. The United States is crumbling within. And if we don't get our act together, this will be the fall of the Roman Empire. Okay, that was the tangent. But the point here is that Citron said about Lucent. Now, again, there are patterns and there are echoes. Lucent Technologies was part of that whole telecom boom and the internet and all this. Now, they had a famous ad that may be in YouTube, maybe, I don't know. But they had a famous ad where they had someone typing up on a keyboard. And there was a cursor and it was typing away and it said Lucent, trying to promote their company. During this tech bubble phase, telecommunications phase. This must have been probably in 1999, maybe 98, somewhere in there. Okay, so we're talking about 27 years ago or whatever. If you start looking at ads today, what are you seeing a lot of ads on? People on screens and the camera's on the screen and they're typing away. And you hear this and someone hitting the keyboard and a cursor and spelling stuff out. These are companies that are trying to promote their AI engine or something to deal with using AI to help you. These might be Google commercials. I'd have to see the commercial again that are coming out with these. It's very similar to the Lucent commercial. What happened with Lucent? Belly up. Overspending. CapEx problems. This is the reason why you need to pay attention to my show, because no one can do what I do. Nobody. Now just listen. And now you have the backstory about Lucent.
Basically pay people to rent back the GPUs that they sell them, they help raise the debt, they find the sites. It's vendor financing, but they've been smarter than the Ciscos and the Lucents in the past by not actually becoming a bank.
Well, and I think that's an important part in that the financiers that they're working with are the ones who are going to determine.
So what's individuals that don't buy into the thesis that AI is going to be great for the world, all right, and that there's going to be a sell-off. people need to start paying attention to this circular financing stuff. And there's these hints. It's kind of like a dot-com bubble, but also there are special purpose vehicles off balance sheet to hide the debt. It's kind of like Lehman and kind of like Enron because of the circular financing of business models that don't really exist. And remember, what was happening with Enron? Of course, they faked their business and lied, but they were saying things like, we're going to be able to trade the communication of broadband like oil or like natural gas. And we'll buy these fiber optic cables and all these bits that are going through, we're going to trade it just like natural gas pipelines, which was total BS. But people bought into it and the stock rose and then eventually it collapsed when people were catching on. And now there are business cases at Harvard Business School about Enron. Something is similar. And when things are similar, then you have to go back to what was the end result? And the end result was a collapse. That's why what Ed Zitron's saying about the collapse of these AI labs, we need to pay attention. But it's bigger, because when that collapse happens, see, this is where Ed Zitron doesn't understand because he's not a finance guy. We have slightly over 100% of our debt to GDP. That hasn't happened since World War II. Well, World War II was like existential threat against fascism. We can't absorb another Lehman shock because we're still dealing with that problem on the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve. And Lehman happened in 2008. So just a little bit less than 20 years ago, and we still have the problem. It's just been covered up. It's been swept under the rug. We overstimulated the economy during COVID and this inflationary spiral. So what we have now is yield curves that are higher. How do we cushion the shock that's coming? Now you understand why I keep on saying there's a curse, because there's a lot of other things that happen with this curse. Economic instability. We have economic instability. How are we going to come up with the funds to rearm our military? Oh, we become weaker in the Pacific. China make their move on Taiwan. Do we have the deterrence? Psychological deterrence and military deterrence to stop that? I would say no. See, everything's linked. And this is why I keep on saying it's about a curse. Ed's only picking up on one piece of it.
The interest rate is that they lend on, as opposed to NVIDIA removing itself from that process, which creates more of a, traditional kind of lender-borrower dynamic in such that, we will lend to you, but here's the price by which it will cost for you to actually borrow this money.
But the trick that NVIDIA does is they lend their credit to companies by not actually lending their credit. With Lambda and CoreWeave, I think they paid them $1.3 billion or more in these 4-year-long contracts. These contracts are then taken to financiers and they say, hey, look, we have a customer. Even though that customer is also the vendor, NVIDIA also propped up CoreWeave's IPO. They invested over $2 billion in them, and I think in Iron as well, post-IPO. They are propping up these companies. They are helping them get funding, and they're backstopping deals as a means of...
So it kind of sounds like Enron.
Well, funneling money to themselves, and they found a way around actually doing the financing themselves while basically getting all the benefits.
Whatever the machinations of how they're getting the capital, lending it, deploying it, what you hear is from somebody in CoreWeave's position, from any of the hyperscalers, from anybody along the food chain is, we are responding to demand signals that cannot be denied. There is more demand than supply. There is a scarcity trade. We need to build in order to find out, where the clearing level is for supply and demand. So I guess NVIDIA's point is you just have to get it out there, and the demand will take care of those issues.
But the thing is, the demand is mostly OpenAI and Anthropic. So Bloomberg actually reported a few days ago that 70% of Microsoft's AI revenue in fiscal year 26 was OpenAI, which also suggests that Microsoft 365 Copilot and Compute is a single-digit billion business. All of the demand from CoreWeave is OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft for OpenAI, and of course Google for OpenAI, and then OpenAI for itself. These companies are basically just compute fronts for two unsustainable, unprofitable AI labs that are basically the only growth engine for hyperscalers at this point. Everybody's propping up what is really the end of the era of hypergrowth.
How can you say they're unsustainable?
Well, I mean, they burn tens of billions of dollars a year and have no proof that they will ever find profitability. There is this mythology that inference is profitable. There is no actual proof of this. This is something Dario Amodei said once as a stylized fact in an interview with Dwarkesh Patel. No, nobody has actually proven this.
Google Gemini. So Sundar Pichai of Google Alphabet yesterday said 1 billion users. I don't know how many of those are layered on top of Gmail. Gmail automatically sort of integrates Gemini. It'll summarize your emails. Copilot is sort of automatically, unless you opt out, integrated into Outlook. Do we have any idea, Ed, how much organic use there is of AI, meaning people who just choose to use AI and pay for it independent of other products like an Outlook, Gmail, etc.? Do we have any idea what that demand case is?
Well, yes, we do. So the thing I mentioned with Bloomberg, 70% of Microsoft's fiscal year 2026 revenue for AI was from OpenAI.
Yes.
So about $34 billion total.
That's Copilot.
No, so just to be clear though, $10.3 billion
time high. So we're actually moving down a bit on the index. That's good news. Now, if we look at the index on a core basis, comes in at 336.78, and that is a new all-time high on that indice. We see that interest rates have moved up just a little bit. We're now at 466.5, so we're up about a basis point and a half, which makes us down a couple on the session. And 2 years at 420, also up a couple basis points. They went from down 4 to
All right, I'm going to replay the video for, unfortunately, the feed that was coming from Rumble to YouTube died off, and I had to reset it. So I'm going to replay the actual data that was coming out for inflation by CNBC.
foreign exchange side, the dollar's at a 3.5-year low versus the Chinese yuan. And here we go, 7:30, 8:30 Eastern, July CPI hitting the wires, up 0.1% on the headline month-over-month number, exactly as expected. In the rearview mirror, as of this point, still unrevised, down 0.4%, was a massive drop for June. If we take out food and energy, up 0.2, exactly as expected. And if we take a year-over-year perspective, a headline year-over-year up 3.4, exactly as expected. That follows 3.5. 3.4 would be the lightest since March, when we were at 3.3. And in my opinion, maybe the most important number is the CPI year-over-year core. Expected 2.5, and it arrives at 2.5. That follows 2.6. So we had January, February, June, July, all at 2.5. We haven't been below 2.5 since March of 21, when we were at 1.6. Now, I always like to take a very close look at what's going on in the actual indices. On the CPI main index created in 1913, it comes in at 333.91, which is actually not a new all-time high, which is a good thing. In the rearview mirror, the May read was 335. That's the all-time high. So we're actually moving down a bit on the index. That's good news. Now, if we look at the index on a core basis, comes in at 336.78, and that is a new all-time high on that indice. We see that interest rates have moved up just a little bit. We're now at 466.5, so we're up about a basis point and a half, which makes us down a couple on the session. And 2 years at 420, also up a couple basis points. They went from down 4 to down 2 basis points. Even though the market was expecting these numbers, in my opinion, we could still make the claim that we're not quite at the 2% level, Fed's objective, and of course the AI and related issues, especially on issuance, really questioning the cost and the inflation implications of what the AI build-out may have in store for us in the future. Mike, back to you.
Hi, I'm Chef Rick Bayless, and these are my quote.
So what I want to do is also play a CNBC clip about AI spending reality check. But before we do, please go to my store, bud-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Manuka honey lozenges or the orange splash lozenges. They're made from structural nanosilver, really important because it will help to protect that oral pharynx, boost up that innate immune system, and neutralize. Perfect for the cold season, the allergy season, and if you're cleaning around the house. If you're exposed to dust while you're cleaning, you might want to be taking this. If you're working out in the yard, you may want to be taking this. So please go to my store and get the structural nanosilver lozenges. Another protocol that I have that I've been doing for over 6 years is to take a teaspoon a day of Max 35 or Cleanse. Swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and then swallow it. What this will do is neutralize, improve your oral cavity and your oral pharynx, maintain a mucosal barrier, and help your epithelial cells. So your innate immune system is boosting up. And when you're doing that, you're protecting yourself from allergens and being able to improve that oral pharynx during the cold season. Super important. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Max 35, take a teaspoon a day every day, or cleanse. And what this will do is boost up that innate immune system. Use discount 5 to save some money because we have inflation and it's at 3.4%. So I'm trying to help you out. And get healthy. Follow this, and what you're going to be doing is you're going to notice that you're slowing down the aging process and your immune system is being boosted up. It's really simple. Now let's play this AI spending reality check.
All right, this morning we're going to break down the massive AI spending spree and whether these record tech investments will actually deliver a return on equity. It's $1 trillion question. Joining us now to answer it, Mitchell Green, founding partner of Lead Edge Capital, and a man I just learned is originally from Michigan. So I helped him out.
So think about this. There's so many people now starting to question the business model of the AI labs and this overbuild out of these server farms. Maybe there's a problem here. Because if it was so obvious, people would just say, oh, this is a great thing. This is a great thing. But it's not. There are many people saying, hey, you look at the details here, it's not that great. But the bankers don't care.
Like you want.
Think about it. The bankers don't care because on the banking side, they have traders that want the volatility. A lot of spending going into tech, bam, they make a lot of money by trading it up. Oh, people are pulling out because the business model is failing. They short it and they're making a lot of money. And then they're underwriters for some of the debt. Or they help IPO a company. So they're playing both sides of the fence. It's a racket.
Mitchell, welcome.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
I mean, that is the question. Listen, yesterday you had Sundar Pichai, Google saying 1 billion Gemini users. Now, I don't know if that's Google, Gmail, Gemini's embedded in that. How many are paying? Maybe we don't know, maybe we do. At $20 a month per retail user, can Google, these other companies, OpenAI, make up the trillions in spending? It's a small question to start the interview.
You figure that question out, but they're going to need the Bank of Jensen to help do it.
Well, they got it.
They got
Part of it 2 days ago.
And they're going to need a lot more of it over time too. The amount of spending. The answer is AI is going to change the world. It is going to revolutionize things. It will probably be bigger than the internet. But are we like in a bubble right now? Absolutely.
Okay, define bubble. What does that mean? Bubble means different things to different people.
Yeah, it will be a bubble and it will probably pop. Will we probably overbuild at some point for the near term? Like, probably. Will people get overexcited about things? You hear big companies right now talk about, like, are they seeing near-term ROI? Right now, there's obviously one killer use case for AI, coding. Will there probably be others? Yes. Have we sat here in 99 and 2000?
So,
yeah.
I was in this studio in 1990. I think I was the first person to ever broadcast from here, at least one of them. And I have a picture, maybe I'll tweet it out, of me standing in front of that wall right there. And there's all these companies that no longer exist. They were $250 and 1/8. That's what we practiced per share. But those were garbage companies that had no revenue, and analysts were creating fake metrics like revenue per eyeball. That was actually a metric that they used. Is it different this time, Mitchell, that these companies, most ones we talk about?
It's different because there's a lot of circular financing. There is some revenue coming into OpenAI and Anthropic, but it doesn't near cover the cost to run the models, to maintain the models, to do the querying. It's a company that can get money in, but the money flowing out is more. How long is that company going to last? I mean, it's just like basic finance 101.
Companies' real revenues, they're not socks.net.
Didn't say earnings, but yes.
The fair point.
I think
most don't have earnings. They're losing billions.
But what's interesting is that we've been on the show, we would have debated whether e-toys or, e-bags or pets.com were going to, put out a bid.
Or Commerce One, Ariba, ICGI, CMI.
What's interesting is a lot of the incumbents did great. Most of the new guys busted. A few of them became big guys. But I think the interesting thing is, had we sat there, we never would have talked about, social media. We wouldn't even talked about it. this is a $5 trillion market today. So I think you're going to see giant businesses come out over the next 5 to 20 years leveraging AI that we're not even talking about right now. And the coding is just the first category. And I am sure people will overspend, just like they did in the telecom bubble. And what's a little scary this time is the amount of leverage being put on this system, and like the amount of implicit leverage. Like if a company, says in 2030 they're going to do X in revenue, and they're going to borrow debt, but they're going to you have an IOU with NVIDIA that's going to pay Oracle and all this circular stuff. That's what worries us a bit, and to try to figure it all out is insanely complex.
Of course, and the payback assumptions are basically the whole equation. And look, you have SpaceX saying we have a 1 year or less than 1 year payback on the AI compute that we built.
Yeah.
Capitalism is not supposed to work that way. Okay?
Yeah.
So every single company piling on more capacity, and if nothing else, it's making tech so much more asset intensive.
Correct.
And capital intensive.
It's the opposite of what all the hyperscalers
what are the implications of that either for valuation or winners and losers?
Valuations don't matter, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, how much of that comes down to token economics, though? Because that's another part of the debate that's really shifted over the last few months, and this idea that, multinational companies are being a little bit more discretionary about token costs. They expect them to accelerate in the second half of the year, but they're monitoring it. They're finding ways to kind of pare back how much their companies are potentially spending on AI. How does that ripple?
No, it was all about token maximizing, obviously, everybody encouraging everybody. But you can use, and that's why you're going to start to see a lot more about these open source models. There's companies like Fireworks.ai and Base 10 and a bunch of that just exploded in popularity, which help big companies like Cursor or companies like Uber, any company that have tons of data, Spotify, Airbnb, that have huge amounts of data, run inference, and they can run inference at 1/10 the cost of these big models, which is incredible. And then you wonder, okay, well,
Or does that kill the big model?
it doesn't kill the big models, but it definitely could lead to pricing pressure. And we think over time, token prices are going to come down over time, fall dramatically. But
Will it become commoditized?
That's the $1 million question that nobody knows. We tend to think they probably will, but who the heck knows? But the real question is this: the frontier models continue to get better and better and better and better. For most use cases, in my firm, we've got a bunch of type A personalities of people that work here, and we all need Fable and Opus. Actually, you probably know. You can probably scan your emails with Sonnet. And so I think what's going to get to a point, I don't know if we're there yet, but you're going to get to a point where a bunch of these models, at least for current use cases, where we haven't come up with the next social media quote use case, you don't need the model that was out a year ago is good enough. And in which case, the open source models aren't that far behind. Now, I think what will happen is running these massive parameter open source models can be very complicated for most companies, for a lot of companies, small and large. And so I think there's going to be companies like Base 10 and Fireworks and others that are already exploding that will continue to grow a lot. There'll be new ones created. And you see companies like OpenRouter that is rumored to be being acquired. Because companies are trying to figure out how to what's the best model to answer the best creation. We are in a very early innings of all this stuff.
What do you think that all means then for the potential for Anthropic and OpenAI to go public? Because we assume they're unprofitable. We speak like they're unprofitable. We don't know what their numbers are.
We've never seen, and I can see what's rumored in the press. We're not investors in either of them. Shame on us. I guess we should have been, because we could have invested years ago. But I'm as excited about you guys to see those companies file S1s and to actually see where they put stuff in gross margins and where they don't. There's millions of different ways to classify things. I look these things, you see how much money these companies are spending on CapEx. They need to be public companies. What they don't have, and we think Google is probably one of the best positioning companies on the planet in the AI race, because they have a cash machine, and they also probably have the best training data in the world with Gmail, YouTube, search data, and all these things.
That's been great.
All right, we're going to pivot over to probably the Middle East issues that are happening. So let's listen to MS Now U.S. fires on ship breaking its blockade of Iranian ports. This happened yesterday, I believe. If we're talking about the same incident.
Trump administration is emphasizing economic pressure on Iran. U.S. Central Command said the vessel ignored warnings to stop, leading a Navy helicopter to fire missiles into the engine room, disabling the ship. There were no immediate reports of casualties. Speaking to reporters last night, President Trump again insisted the U.S. has control over the Strait of Hormuz, despite continued Iranian attacks there and shipping data that suggests otherwise.
We have total control over the Hormuz Strait right now. They don't have control. We have total control. We own it. And at some point, maybe they'll do something and then they get blown away. But right now, we're in a very good position. We have a country that has been the bully of the Middle East for 50 years. It's really 51 if you think about it, right? We've been saying 47 for 4 years. And they're no longer the bully of the Middle East.
Let's bring in President Emeritus of the Council on Foreign Relations, Richard Haass. He's the author of the Substack Home and Away. Richard, good morning. You're writing about this, what the president calls low-key approach to Iran. What do you take that to mean, and what's your reaction to what he just said there, that the United States is in, quote, total control of the Strait of Hormuz?
Easy to start with the latter. We're not. No one's in total control of the Strait of Hormuz. And partly, Willie, it's easy to deny use of the Strait of Hormuz than it is to guarantee use. So we can deny use to the extent we went to Iran. Iran can deny use to others. Insurers won't insure cargo ships or tankers. So denial is relatively easy. Guaranteeing use relatively hard. So that's where the strait is. Very little traffic going through, much less than went through before the war. Before the war began. And now I've gone on so long, I forgot your first question.
Just the low-key pursuit of this war, that's the president's term. What does that even mean?
That means holding off any new use of military force for a couple of reasons. One is it hasn't worked. Iran's pretty good at taking a punch. Two, our munition stocks are dangerously low. Three, there's always the danger of Iranian escalation, and they could destroy the energy and water infrastructure of the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and that would take what's been a modest crisis. Gasoline prices, say just above $4, we could knock them over $5 or $6 if that were to happen. So that the president, the bluff to use military force is just that. It's an empty bluff. So we're turning to economics. Too bad we didn't have that conversation in February. Would have been much, much smarter from the get-go. I actually think we might have succeeded. Right now, though, economic pressure tends to be slow. And any form of coercion always leaves the initiative with the side being coerced. So we're trying to tighten the screws on Iran. It's up to them to decide whether and if so when to say uncle. And so this is slow motion. This is a slow motion game. The question is, can we take the pain of a closed strait longer than they can take the pain of a failing economy? We'll see.
So, John, you're writing about this morning as well. You're using the term patience instead of low-key, the president saying he's patient in this war. Iran emboldened, if you look at some of the demands they're making lately, end the blockade, lift the sanctions, unfreeze the assets, get your troops out of the Middle East, all of those things that aren't going to happen. But just a message of where they believe they are, the cards they think they hold. So what does patience mean right now for the White House?
I mean, to this point, nothing has worked in Iran. So they're going to now try nothing. They're going to just try to let this sit, and they're going to try to ramp up economic pressure. They are going to Richard's point. They're going to back off some of the threats of kinetic attacks. They're going to they're walking away from negotiations, at least for the time being. As I write, every time Trump touts a possible breakthrough negotiations, the hardliners in Tehran seem to delight in changing their terms and yanking away a possible deal. It's like Lucy holding a football.
And this is the reason why natural gas is trading on the upper side of the range. We're at 2.8 right now. It should be trading at 2.5, 2.6. And oil is trading at 82, 81 for WTI. It should be trading like $68. But everything is elevated. And this is going to feed into inflationary pressures. On top of, we used up, we drew down a lot of our reserve, our strategic reserve. So again, this is another issue where can we absorb another shock? The Federal Reserve has pumped in lots of money for COVID and for Lehman, for 9/11. And it's just been the debt has been creeping up more and more and more. And as this crisis in the Middle East continues, we're spending down that reserve. So what happens when another shock happens? And that strategic reserve is for war, assuming that we win. You can't just keep on kicking the can down the road. This is where Trump has failed his policies in the Middle East. Now, I do think we should engage in the Middle East and kill the enemy, but because he didn't use ground troops at the very beginning and didn't seize the northern part of the strait and those islands and take Karg and control the energy from Iran, he failed. He failed. And now he's spent so much of the munitions that it's now questionable that further military escalation, is it even viable? So he lost an opportunity because he thought he was a master negotiator. The reality is that the Iranians are smarter in terms of negotiating than the deal maker, Donald Trump. He overestimated his ability to solve this problem in the Middle East. And now we have a problem. We cannot take additional shocks. This is the reason why I keep on saying a curse is coming. And it's not gonna be good. People need to pay attention to this. It's going to affect our economy. It's going to affect our military prowess. It's going to affect our health. It's going to affect our food supply. And I wouldn't be surprised. It is not out of the realm of possibility under a Trump administration that the super volcano that's at Yellowstone blows up. Just, to put a cherry on the top of the ice cream. Because in Trump's world, everything's chaotic. Now, no, I don't think that there's a high probability of a super volcano going off in Yellowstone anytime soon. But if you've been paying attention to the tectonic plates that have been moving around, Colombia, Mexico, and Japan, that tectonic plate, the probability of something happening in California in the near term is highly likely. Now just imagine a major earthquake happening in California.
Brown, except this time the pigskin is 3 to 4 moves. Like they just won't, they get to the brink and they pull it back. They keep changing terms. They're trying to embarrass the president. So they're trying to ramp up sanctions here. But it is going to rely, Joe, on the calendar because the president, first of all, is famously impatient and he could escalate things with the Truth Social post, and this goes out the window. Also, of course, the midterms are approaching. And then lastly, and I write this in the piece as well, so we're reporting about how U.S. officials have been consistently surprised at how resilient Iran and its economy have been. No doubt, Iran's economy is worse off today than it was in February. No one disputes that. But they have shown they have much worse off. But they have shown there's now a sense, though, they're not exactly at the breaking point either. So the question is, how long is this going to take before this economic pressure forces Tehran to come to the table and actually do serious negotiations?
Well, the president's best strategic move is to continue to put this economic pressure on Iran because, again, a hot war, a kinetic war doesn't work, hasn't been working effectively with the Iranians, again, because we're doing it from the air. It's far different if the United States wanted to go in with boots on the ground, but there is not the will among the people or the president or certainly not Congress. So the Iranians know that. So
because if you look at it from a religious point of view, because there wasn't a will for putting boots on the ground and doing it right, the right way, we're going to fail in that region. Now, what's supposed to happen is that Esau was supposed to be decapitated. Trump made made a comment in the White House about decapitation as a possibility. So he's even used terms that are of biblical context. Esau is supposed to be decapitated. Esau is supposed to be buried with his parents. Esau couldn't be buried with his parents because he was an animal. So they had to separate his body, his intellect. Esau's very smart, but he's also an animal. He acts like an animal. Now think about what's going on in the Middle East. You know, there's an element of this animalistic behavior, a very mobsterish mentality. So there has to be a separation between the intellect and the actual rest of the body. The intellect and the animal soul has to be separated to allow for proper attachment to the parents. Now, who does this? Now, my understanding is Benjamin. So what is happening is Trump, because let's go back to that whole things echo, history echoes. Trump has, for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, has the same embodiment of Benjamin. And Trump is supposed to kill, decapitate Iran to allow for a more peaceful environment. But that peaceful environment won't be right away, but it will start a process that's probably aligned with the Abraham Accord. But there's something that happens. Now think about, what's the Abraham Accord? Well, the whole idea is to be able to be buried, these great people, right, of the different religions, to be buried with the patriarch of monotheism. So there's a religious component to this. And because Trump didn't do the right thing, there's a curse that's going to come. Now, I've said this on many videos in different ways, but that's what's happening here. And Trump keeps on failing, keeps on failing, keeps on failing. And because he can't keep on doing this, there's a time frame that if he doesn't do it, the curse comes. If he does, I'll make it very simple for everybody to understand this. If Trump doesn't kill the IRGC and decapitates the theocratic regime of Iran before 9/11 of 2026, the curse comes. Not doing it on 9/12 or 9/13 or 10/20 or whatever. If it doesn't happen by 9/11 of 2026, a major curse is going to happen. Now, Trump doesn't understand this. Trump was given a blessing by not being blown away on live TV. And he fails the very thing he was supposed to do. Because Trump is an idiot. Trump is a chicken. Trump always chickens out.
You can do militarily from the air. There are also limits when it comes to munitions. And John Lemire, I've got to ask you about the latest reporting.
We wouldn't have had the munition issue if we took the islands, knocked out the bridges, knocked out their energy production and their power grid. We would have been able to take over that country. We could have secured what needed to be secured in the first 3 to 4 weeks, but Trump decided not to. And he uses these excuses. Well, Saudi Arabia told me not to do it, or the GCC countries told me not to do it. We can just embargo them, we can just blockade them, and we're in control. Really? You're in control? To restock the munitions is going to take more than 2 years. 2 years. Because he was afraid to have 3,000 to 5,000 casualties to do the right thing. That's what it would have took. we would have probably lost 3,000 to 5,000 soldiers to do a ground invasion. That first wave. He was afraid. Not a leader. Leaders aren't afraid.
All the sources that you talk to, all the people that you know, Richard talked about a serious lack of munitions. And I'd love to have Claire follow this as a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee for many years. But you know, we keep seeing these reports that our munition stocks are extraordinarily low or dangerously low. And then Pete Hegseth will call somebody a commie or something, just some stupid child.
Now think about this. Okay, now Trump gets to 9/11, 2026. The curse starts. We're trying to get our munitions going for rearmament. And President Xi decides, you know what, I'm going to take a risk and attack Taiwan. Or, better yet, not even attack, just blockade. Choke them up. Is the United States going to go in and stop the blockade? Probably not. So now we lost the hegemonic power in the Asian theater that my grandfather fought for during World War II. We're going to lose that, and now we don't have freedom of navigation in that region, the 9-dash line. Now they're calling it the 10-dash line. But the point is we're not going to have freedom of navigation in that region. Thanks, Trump, for screwing things up even more, because you're afraid to actually do the right thing. And the very thing that you're alive for, the only reason that Trump is alive today, from a metaphysical point of view, is to kill Iran, is to destroy the IRGC and the theocratic regime. That is the only reason he was given a chance. It wasn't to lower your taxes. It wasn't to, to do these Republican policies. That was the thing. You think God saves a person like Trump on live TV from having his head blown off for lower taxes? Or the issue between, gender dysphoria in female sports? No. It's something bigger. And when it comes to big things, Trump fucks up. He always fucks up. So what it was is that he was like running a casino. He was at the casino and he did okay with the Maduro issue. Was able to win in Venezuela, do a quick win there. He was feeling confident. He felt confident with the B-2 bombing run, knocking out those nuclear facilities in Iran. So he was gonna put his chips on the table, thinking he was gonna be able to win quick. And the reality was that it wasn't gonna be quick, and that there were gonna be casualties, and that needed to have a ground force. And the military was even preparing for this, with the Marines going in, the airborne going in. It could have been done, but he chickened out. And now we're all gonna pay for it. We're all gonna pay for it from a metaphysical problem, and we're also gonna pay for it from a loss of hegemonic power. Now, when we lose our hegemonic power by not having freedom of navigation, especially in Asia, we're gonna lose our reserve status with the petrodollar. And when that happens, your costs of goods are going to go up. Even though we're complaining about 2.4% inflation right now, start thinking about 8-9% inflation that's not transitory. Because it's because of us being a world reserve currency that allows us to import deflation. So what are we going to do then? So it's so easy to see the emergence of these things that are happening in the world, they are going to affect the average citizen of the United States. This is at the level of the fall of the Roman Empire. It's at that level because Trump was afraid. And why does he have to be afraid? Think about it. It is so obvious that that guy was given a blessing to do something big. And he can't do it. He just is afraid. Why? Why is he afraid? Did he forget that he was given a blessing? Because if you're given a blessing, you'll succeed. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but you'll be successful. I think he forgot that he was blessed. I think that he has hubris. And because of that, that blessing that he had is starting to erode. And something bad's coming.
If a reporter actually repeats what people in the Pentagon are saying to them. So my question is, what's your latest reporting on munitions? And then declare, how the hell does a country spend trillions and trillions of dollars on munitions and on their defense, on their military machine, and then run out of munitions so quickly? Jonathan, first to you, what's the state of munitions in the U.S.?
They're low. I mean, the president speaks these grand terms. Of course, the United States has low.
The reason why they're low is because when the Pentagon does their budget, they're so focused on these sexy line items like building and buying F-35s and F-22s and, these grandiose missile defense systems for the Golden Dome and all this stuff. The new F-47 plane development, these kinds of things, because it's what the generals like. The generals like toys, but buying munitions seems like so ho-hum. But yet, you think about it. World War II in the European theater wasn't won because of bombers. It was won because of a ground force and bullets, guns, tanks. It was the movement of the force were eroding and pushing back the Nazis. Now, yes, there was a two-front war and all this, but it's the ho-hum stuff that's really important. Not so much the F-35 or the F-22. See, our Pentagon has focused on quick wars. Well, that sounds a whole like the same problem that the Nazis had, the Germans had. Think about it. If you look back at the history of the Germans during World War I and World War II, they had this thought process that you can win by moving fast and outpacing your enemy. For World War I, they moved the troops quicker than the French. They had the troops more prepared than the French. And they were able to advance quicker up to a point, and then the trench warfare started, and the Germans were in a stalemate. Now, go to Hitler and Blitzkrieg. He took that right out of the early days of World War I. So now we have a mechanized military. Let's go back to World War II. The Germans made better tanks than the United States. But we need more of them. So cheaper, not as good, but more, is actually more important on the battlefield than the high-tech stuff. The best. It's a numbers game. So the problem that we're having with the drones and trying to knock them out with a $1 million, $2 million missile is not cost effective, and we fall in the same trap as the Nazis did. We fall into the same trap with this idea of quick war and very expensive hardware. We don't have the endurance. We don't have the stamina. And the Pentagon has failed the American public because of this. So now we don't have a manufacturing base to kick out munitions that we need. There's a war coming in Asia, and we are on the wrong foot of this because Trump didn't want to do the right thing. Now, if Trump did the right thing and we were controlling the strait and controlling the energy, we would have been able to check China because China gets a lot of its energy from Iran. So winning in that region is important. Way beyond just decapitating Esau. Our generals are idiots, just idiots. Then, of course, he won't answer it in the detail that I just did. The manufacturing capacity isn't there. And our generals were too focused on expensive hardware like the F-35.
Weapons, but the specific type of these interceptors, these defense missiles, stockpiles are dangerously low. I write about that in the piece as well. There is concern they wouldn't be able to have enough to say withstand an attack in Asia were something to happen elsewhere. And that's the other part of the calculation why they don't think they should do an all-out strike on Iran right now as well. Iran will retaliate, and we may not have the ability to defend our bases in the region and our allies in the region.
Big problem. Okay, so interesting. Let's talk about Hong losing the primary in Wisconsin. But before we take a look at that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc will boost up that immune system, which is super important to slow down the aging process. Because if you're sick all the time, guess what? You age faster. And magnesium and zinc, by boosting up that immune system, you're going to slow down that aging process, but you're also improving your brain function. Not enough people are taking supplementation with magnesium, and that's important for brain function. So take my advice and do that. Lignans brings down inflammation, soaks up free radicals, helps the immune system and the endocrine system. Ashwagandha root controls blood glucose levels and controls your cortisol levels. So that helps your immune system and your cardiovascular system. And turmeric brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals. You're noticing that there's a theme here. That theme is by bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals, your tissues are healthier. Part of aging is more inflammation. Part of aging is more free radicals. And it's a positive feedback loop. More inflammation, more free radicals, more inflammation, more free radicals, and then the aging of the tissues, the aging of your organs. But if you keep the inflammation down, if you soak up those free radicals, your tissues don't age as fast. It's a very simple concept. So you can take these separately, but I highly recommend that you take them together. The turmeric, the lignans, and the ashwagandha root are synergistic. They'll boost up that immune system in your endocrine system, help with your vascular system by reducing plaque formation, and help with brain function by keeping the inflammation down and keeping the neurons healthy. Now you can listen to me and do what I'm telling you to do, or don't. The reality is this: you go one path, you are going to get healthier. You go a different path, and you're going to have problems. Which path, modern man, do you want to go? Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and don't be a Trump. Use discount 5. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Maybe what I should do is send 3 boxes of magnesium and zinc to Trump so he can get smart. All right, let's listen to The Hill.
The DSA has been upsetting the Democratic establishment all year, but last night it was on the receiving end of an upset in Wisconsin. Democratic Socialist candidate Francesca Hong narrowly lost the Democratic nomination for governor to the more moderate David Crowder. She lost by less than a percentage point, according to DDHQ. Only about 3,000 votes separated the two in a race where nearly 790,000 votes were cast. Crowley's campaign put out a statement earlier this morning calling for unity ahead of November, writing, "David is focused on bringing people together, earning the support of Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and anyone who believes Wisconsin is at its best when we work together and deliver results." Well, there is a result, and he has won over Francesca Hong. What do you make of all that?
What I make is that the polling screwed up royally again.
Yeah.
Maybe Janet Mills should have stayed in that race against Graham Plattner. I don't know. You tell me, Niall, how are the lefties doing these polls?
Well,
they're skewing them.
Well, I don't know. I would need to look at how recent some of those polls were.
They were not recent at all.
Yeah, see, that's, I think, part of the difficulty here, because to my mind, Francesca Hong was an outlier even among these recent candidates because of some of the things she had said publicly and her disinclination to back away from them until she was absolutely
sure.
forced
But
to do
I'm
so.
a little surprised, honestly.
No. They need to pay attention. No. This is where, again, I see a pattern. These stupid asses don't see it. It's the college areas of these states. Think about what happened with Abdul El Sayed. He won the primary in Michigan because of Ann Arbor, because of Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids. These are centers of learning, but these college towns are liberal. They're pushing this whole communist stuff. They're pushing this DSA type stuff. Now, yes, Abdul El Sayed technically isn't DSA, but he kind of is. And he's even worse than just DSA, because there's part of an Islamification that's taking place, especially in Michigan. Case in point, Hamtramck. Case in point, Dearborn. Very similar to the takeover that was happening in London. Now you have mayors in Dearborn that are telling white folk that have been there for decades or born there to get out of the town if they don't like Islam. Well, wait a minute here. That sounds like a caliphate. And if you actually take a look at the Quran, the operating system of the Quran is this type of caliphate takeover. So what do? Michigan is a canary in the coal mine. And this whole Islamification, DSA, is spreading. It started with Mandani, and it's spreading. It's metastasizing. Now, it's good, on the one hand, that Hong lost, because that's like, nope, we don't want DSA. The problem comes in, on the other hand, that now the Democratic, during the general election, the Republican governor has a harder chance of winning versus Crowley, which is a Democrat. Now, Wisconsin is a purple state. It's kind of fractured. It's got some Republican in it, and it has a Democrat function to it too, at the state legislature. But there's a trend that's happening, and that's younger people coming from the college towns are voting in large numbers and leading this DSA-like charge, this Islamification and DSA charge. How's that any different than how Mao was gaining momentum in the 50s? I see a lot of similarities. Because what did Mao do? Mao put dunce caps on landlords, saying that you're extracting from the people and you are evil. And they took their property. They killed them or imprisoned them or put them in re-education camps because they were landlords. Well, what's happening with Mondani? Mondani is demonizing landlords, doxing them, taxing them. How's it any different? There is a takeover happening. This adds into one of the other elements of the curse, the internal struggle between conservatism and this progressiveness that's happening in this society. And this progressivism is this ultra left-wing movement. Having someone slightly right of center or slightly left or center or even just center is okay. Our republic will be better that way. A little bit on both sides, a little bit off of the center on both sides of the aisle. But when you're on the ultra extreme, ultra right or ultra left, it's bad for the country. And what's happening is that we're becoming more polarized. And because of this, there's a lot of infighting that's happening. And we're going to be less productive and not be focused on the more important issues of the day. And we're going to lose our hegemonic power. Do you want to lose your hegemonic power or have free healthcare? Because think about this. By losing the hegemonic power, everything's going to be more expensive. But yet, most of these stupid people that are coming out of these institutions of learning are saying, we want free healthcare. Free healthcare. Okay, you get the free healthcare. Let's play this out. You get the free healthcare and we're issuing bonds and our interest rates start to go up and we're issuing more debt. All right, we're going to have to tax more to be able to pay that debt. So people have less. The economy isn't as functional, isn't as productive, but you got free healthcare. And now we can't buy the munitions that we need to actually stop the advancement on the first and second island chains from China. And now China wins the war. And we lost our hegemonic power. And we no longer are a reserve currency. But you got free healthcare. And now everything is more expensive to the point where there's so much infighting that we may actually lose our republic. Because if the DSA takes over, they want a one-party system that is not a constitutional republic. That's the danger that America's in right now. Why can't these people say this? It's self-evident. It's axiomatic. But everyone just wants to do their talking on their shows and just keep on talking and keep on talking and talking and talking and talking. And then all of a sudden the Roman Empire falls.
If that's true, how badly the Thanksgiving comments seem to hurt her. I mean, I found them crazy. So it's not like, it's not weird that hurt her, but
and really, and think about that. Think about that. Why would you mess with Thanksgiving? Why? Oh, wait a minute here. there's an element of God, country, and family in that. See, people that are aligned with DSA aren't aligned with the Enlightenment. They're not aligned with property rights. They're not aligned with the idea of life, liberty, and property rights. They're aligned with, we are your rulers, we're going to tell you how to live. Top-down government. This postmodern philosophy of Karl Marx, instead of being aligned with the Enlightenment. DSA doesn't like God, country, and family. What's more God, country, and family than Thanksgiving? See the issue here? The infighting that's taking place within the country is the seed of elements of the curse.
You know, it did. What didn't? I don't know.
I think, yeah, no, I think
everybody was watching Fox News and Rising and all the blend and reading and on Twitter and was like, oh yeah, she's too crazy. I guess that's what happened. Okay.
So I think there are elements of truth to that, and I think those were further exacerbated by the fact that it was very notable that she didn't get the endorsements from those big names in the progressive movement, notably Bernie Sanders and AOC, who have endorsed El Sayed, for example. El Sayed does not define himself as a socialist, but we're still
even Bernie Sanders loves Thanksgiving in his 5 homes. Yeah. Progressive guy, Bernie, has more homes than you do. How could that be? He's a communist. Oh, wait a minute here. But if you're a party head, you're okay. All right, Gorbachev.
Against the more centrist candidates. So in Hong's case, I do take it as voters thinking, oh, she's just not electable. Even the Thanksgiving thing, she did eventually move away from it, but it wasn't, what we have seen in other cases, like perhaps El Sayed or Mamdani, where tweets from 3 or 4 years ago are resurfaced, and there's an implication like, well, I tweeted that, but I changed my mind. Initially, she had defended the moral opposition to Thanksgiving, which I don't think was a politically astute move, to put it mildly. And to my mind, that means even Democrat.
It's not so much the politically astute move. It's just common sense. See, this is the point that I'm making here. You have a Democrat pundit on the Hill that is saying that the issue was that it wasn't a politically astute move for Hong to demonize Thanksgiving. That's the wrong answer. Simon says, in this whole family feud that's going on. So what the right answer was, wait a minute here. Perhaps we need to snap back, be more aligned with the Enlightenment. Like John Locke, saying like, your property is your property. That's the right answer. God, country, and family. Now, let's step back to this pattern recognition that I keep on telling everybody about. Everyone saw AOC. AOC supposedly has now dropped her boyfriend of many years. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I don't really care. But she obviously is not God, country, and family. No. Dr. Paul Cottrell, what are you saying? I mean, this makes no sense. She does this video where she is injecting herself to prepare for egg harvesting. So she can maybe run as a president and maybe later on get pregnant. Okay, I mean, many women decide to postpone having children. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is that does she really believe in God, country, and family? She hates the country. She thinks that our economic system is for naught and wants communism, wants the government to tell you how you're going to spend your money. Oh, and take away your property. So she's not about rights. She aligns with people that use the American flag as a napkin or walks on it, which is appalling. So she's not for a country. She doesn't seem to really be aligned with religion. She's aligned with this postmodern anything goes kind of thing. Sex in the City kind of 1980s kind of thing, where she doesn't want to have family creation. She doesn't want to get married, or the guy didn't want to marry her, or maybe she picked the wrong guy. Something's wrong here. Maybe he was a beta male. I don't know. Don't really care. But AOC is not God, country, and family. So you can see it manifesting on TikTok or on X with this video of her trying to harvest her eggs. So now what I think is happening is that she's a little ticked off that she got dumped, and then she's, now preparing for the presidential run and, whatever. And, she's kind of lashing out in the public sphere that she's still in control of, her destiny in terms of family creation. But does the Democratic Party that that AOC represents, can you honestly say they're aligned with God, country, and family? No. And you see it with this video. So the insanity is playing out. And we need to step back and go, well, wait a minute here. Maybe there's too much voyeurism. Maybe we need to slow things down a little bit. Think about what's happening here. Is the country moving in the right direction? Now, the Republican Party has failed. They had the executive branch, they had the legislative branch, and they even had control of the Supreme Court. And yet they're still failing middle America. Yeah, they did tax breaks, but middle America is still faltering because of the high cost of living. Opportunities are not as prevalent as before for a multitude of reasons. Some of it's AI driven, some of it is that companies are becoming more productive. Companies are afraid to invest in their business. So there's a retrenchment that's taking place for a big part of society. And then there's another part of society that's doing really, really well. So the have-nots are spreading farther and farther. So the Republican Party has failed these people. And so they're upset. And if you're young and you're coming out of school and you can't get a job, you're going to gravitate to DSA policies, especially if you've been hearing from liberal professors about how great socialism is. So what do we do? What are we going to do as a country to save it? It's self-evident that DSA is not going to move us in the right direction. We need to get back to the center. The center. Not ultra-right, not ultra-left, the center. And when we do that, we will have prudent policy creation in Congress.
Really have an appetite for more progressive politics. We're like, so.
These things do come down a little bit to personality and vibe.
Sure.
And this is like so entirely subjective. It's hard to even discuss, but maybe she just didn't have it, and the opponent did.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And it's also like she, unlike someone like El Sayed, like, I mean, I'd been obviously aware of El Sayed's candidacy for quite a few months. I had barely heard of her until maybe 3 weeks ago, Francesca Hall. And then the first thing you hear really is the Thanksgiving furor. That isn't something that recommends her to anybody.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. I mean, the DSA hates America so much. They want to fuck with your turkey, your mashed potatoes and gravy, your steamed vegetables, your cranberry sauce. They want to mess with that. They believe in top-down government. They believe in nanny state to the point where they're going to control your Thanksgiving. That's un-American.
And I actually never encountered this argument before. It makes a certain amount of sense, however, that people are going to be more radical in their choices, ironically, for federal legislative office, because what the Senate is a glorified debate club for pundits.
Sure.
Whereas when you're picking the chief executive of your state, you're going to pick like a normal person who runs things, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an argument.
There is an argument.
But that doesn't, that argument doesn't hold. Why did Hochul get elected? Why did Whitmore get elected in Michigan? Hochul's running New York. She's a nut. I think that the GDP in the United States is somewhat bolstered up because of the mascara consumption by Whitmore and Hochul. That's just my economic opinion.
Particularly for governor, you're
Abdul El Sayed is Senate. This is the race. But again, to go to the polling, Abdul El Sayed that dramatically underperformed that polling. Now, so has she. Obviously, the polling is what the polling is.
Yeah.
People are pointing to, well, that who are the firms doing this polling? Are they just calling angry leftist socialists?
Right. Well, I mean, there's also
we talk about like the shy Trump vote phenomenon in terms of polling.
Yeah, there can be all kinds of quirks.
They're not polling black people
in polling. I don't know. I mean, I think there is a broader issue in polling where there has been a expansion in recent years of polls that are sponsored by partisans but made public to foster a positive narrative of a particular race, right? So you have a left-wing organization commissions a poll from a left-wing pollster, and then it's like, oh, the progressive's up 20 points. And you use that to create the sense of momentum. Now, I'm not saying that that is what has happened in these cases, and there are mirrored images of what I just described on the right, but the use of polling for that purpose has certainly increased.
Yeah. So, we'll see how this plays into the broader narrative about establishment versus left. I was just believing the polls. So last night when I talked about this on the Hills live stream, I was like, yeah, the establishment's cooked. They have no energy. They have no wind in their sails because they need a lefty socialist person to cost them some kind of race for them to. Then they're going to get mad and they're going to start like fighting back. Actually,
well, this
is not an example of that. Like if Abdul El Sayed goes down to defeat, that's going to make. There's going to be the establishment strikes back.
Right. I mean, it's also the thing where those narratives or theories have often proven wrong in politics. I mean, I remember the argument even a week or two out from the 2016 presidential election from more moderate Republicans was, oh, Trump's going to get absolutely thumped by Hillary Clinton.
Right.
And then we'll come back to this more inclusive, forward-looking, inviting to Latinos, softer and immigration party. It never happened. Exactly.
If he had one,
that
would
happen.
I fully believe, if not for
EVE Online is a vast universe, alive with the unreal.
Fully believe, if not for Trump's victory, it would have been, the Republican Party would have just totally, they would have not.
If you're worried that the Democratic Party is going to win during the midterm election and control Congress, you may want to stock up on turkeys. You may want to buy lots of turkeys, maybe 10 years worth of turkeys, and freeze them, because you never know when they take away your Thanksgiving.
It would have taken, they were all set up to take that lesson that no, we blew this election because Trump stormed in here, took over our party.
Sure.
You know, we're never going to let that happen again, or we'll fight him tooth and nail to stop it from happening again. But he was like, oh, never mind.
Yeah, exactly. So if El Sayed wins, you know, if some of these candidates, last night, you know, we were talking earlier about the fact that there are actually mixed signals for the left, because of course Peggy Flanagan won pretty easily in Minnesota, defeating a more moderate candidate in the shape of Angie Gray. So it is, I think, a bit, I just wouldn't extrapolate too much from the Wisconsin race.
Of course, that race was not on my radar at all. Maybe people in the state knew that that's the left candidate and that's the establishment candidate, but or maybe they didn't know because that one's gotten zero scrutiny and hasn't gotten as much social media attention to help you know that that's that one and that's that one.
Well, although like a lot of voters still get a lot of their information from local news, and I think in Wisconsin, in Minnesota, excuse me, they probably do that.
No, they get all their news from Rising. Meanwhile, Minnesota Republicans did reject longtime Trump supporter and My Pillow founder Mike Lindell in their gubernatorial primary. Take a look. This one wasn't as close, despite Lindell having the endorsement of President Trump. Of course, the third Trump endorsement lost in 2 weeks. And people are going to be making a lot of that. I don't know that they should. This was kind of Trump endorsing a very close friend, who has, you know, had his back through thick and thin.
Through thick and thin and pretending not.
Please go to my store, blood-studio-reykjavik.com. If you want to see the world with wide eyes and be able to focus, get the clarity factor. This will get rid of that brain fog. It'll allow you to concentrate on tasks. And when you take this regularly, you're going to improve those dendritic connections. Your neurons are going to be hooked up better. You're going to be strengthening those neural networks. You're going to be thinking faster, and you will have better memory. So you can fight the commies. Please go to my store and get the clarity factor. Vitamin D3 is dual purpose. It's a gene expression cofactor, really important for your cells. It helps to boost up your immune system, especially if cells are infected. It'll force those cells to go into apoptosis. Vitamin D3 helps the cardiovascular system and helps with bone density. It stacks really well with K2 and K7 that you can get on my store also. Olive leaf extract, dual purpose, brings down inflammation and helps to control your lipid profile. By doing that, you're helping your cardiovascular system, and by bringing down systemic inflammation, you're boosting up your immune system. It's a great supplement to take. Digestive enzyme complex. If you're 40 years of age or older, you need to take digestive enzyme complex. Why? Because it reduces the load on your pancreas. It'll allow you to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. You'll be able to absorb your nutrients better, and it has less stress on your digestive system. No matter how healthy you are, your pancreas is not functioning as well as when you were younger. So please go to my store and get the digestive enzyme complex. Digestive enzyme complex also has bromelain in it that helps to break up clots. Vitamin B complex, if you're 40 years of age or older, take this. This will help protect your neurons, rev up your metabolism, and increase your energy levels. You'll have more ATP, and so your cells will perform better. Really important. So please go to my store, use discount 5. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Click the link that's in the description, go to my store, get the supplements, get healthy, so you can fight the commies. Because how do they take over? By making you weak, mentally, physically, spiritually, and economically. So if you control your finances better, if you control your health better, if you educate yourself, formally or informally, it doesn't matter, just educate yourself, you will be able to fight these people. And spiritually, strengthen your spirituality.
How are you finding the time to send over all these meeting notes?
I got a secret. I've been using Granola.
What is Granola?
So it's an AI notepad. If you want to take notes during the meeting, Granola can fill in everything around them. If you don't,
U.S. official said Israel briefed the Trump. All right, meanwhile, 7 minutes after the hour.
New details are emerging over the reported Iranian threat on the president's life while he was at the NATO summit in Turkey.
It comes as President Trump says the U.S. still has total control of the Strait of Hormuz.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Ames joining us live from Tel Aviv with the very latest. Hey, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. It's a story that has captured the world attention.
Yeah, I always go off on a tangent, but I'm going to go off on a little tangent here before Trey starts talking about the Strait. We know about this changing the planes when he was at the NATO summit, and the reporters were on one plane and he was in a different plane, and they used a catering cart container to move Trump off the plane and into another plane. Think about this for a second. What would be the best way to gain power for the executive branch? Let's just go back to 9/11 of 2001. You have some planes hit a building. Do emergency powers. Have the Patriot Act. Have a long war in the Middle East. A lot of Qing, a lot of money. But not only that, you're strengthening the national security state. Now let's fast forward to 2026. Does Trump kind of represent, does he have an element of an authoritarian type personality? Yeah. Trump, if he was leading the troops during the revolution, do you think that he would have stood down his generalship and became just a private citizen? Or do you think he would have been a military dictator? Be honest. He probably would have picked the opposite of what George Washington did, because that's what most people would have done. George Washington was someone special. He had virtue. Trump doesn't have virtue. There's something different. Trump is a little bit more like a Roman Empire, Roman authoritarian, some sort of emperor or pseudo-emperor. Okay, so with that, what if we are being manufactured with the consensus through the news? Now, this is a wild idea that there will be an accident that takes place, maybe with Air Force One, but Trump's not on it. His cabinet may be on it, or many people in his cabinet are on it. And the press corps is on the plane, and it goes down, and there's some sort of connection to Iran. Wouldn't that be the perfect way to push for more escalation in the Middle East and to do these emergency powers to allow for the executive branch to wage war? I wouldn't put it past the national security state. And people could say, well, this is plausible. Look at what was happening. There was some threats that were happening during the NATO summit. and other threats that have happened throughout the years. Iran's a bad actor. We have to go into emergency status. See what I mean by the curse? You have also a potential national security state nefarious action that could take place. Just imagine Trump on a different plane, and the plane that he left was blown out of the sky or went down for some reason, malfunction, and all those reporters were dead, and much of his cabinet's gone. What do you think would have happened? We would have gone full war and DEFCON 1. Think about that. Think about how close we were that if the national security state decided to do something nefarious, how close we came to DEFCON 1. No one's talking about that. Everyone wants to make fun of Trump being in a catering container. But they're not like looking at like, wait a minute. Maybe DrPaulCottrell's right. Maybe there is something, there's a curse of bad action starting to emerge that leads to a really bad event. Now, with the dictatorial aspect of his personality, what do you think would happen with these emergency powers? If Trump was in the White House during 9/11 of 2001, what do you think would have happened?
This week, a threat by the Iranian regime on President Trump's life in Turkey last month. The Wall Street Journal reports it was actually Israeli intelligence that tipped off the administration to a specific danger. The report explains the sourcing on this information, saying the U.S. official said Israel briefed the Trump administration on the intelligence, which included a threat to use shoulder-to-air missiles to target Air Force One. Ultimately, the president was reportedly...
Now think about this. If we start to disengage in the region, who is at risk? Well, the United States, some of our partners in the region that's tied to the GCC, but also Israel. So the national security state isn't just the United States. It's the Five Eyes. And so you might have a nefarious actor like Israel that decides to orchestrate an event that leads to war powers and an emergency footing that increases our engagement in the region. Just imagine if that plane was shot out of the sky and Trump landed on a different plane. What would have happened? Think about it. You think the press corps would just go, don't go in? They lost most of their important staff. The cabinet's gone, including the VP. Let's just imagine that happened. So Johnson would become VP, and they would have to have a new speaker. There's a lot of weird stuff could happen. A lot of weird stuff. So maybe another 9/11 type event isn't going to be on the ground. It may be in the sky. Something happens.
From Air Force One to another plane using a catering truck. Fox has not independently confirmed that detail.
Mr. President, can you tell us about your ride on the airport catering truck in Turkey? Why did you need to do that?
Well, it's only up to Secret Service. I just follow what they'd like to do. So I go by Secret Service and the military. They wanted me to go on a different flight, a different plane, equal safety, but they wanted me to do it, so I do it. I do what they say.
The story comes as indirect negotiations continue with Iran aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And the head of Iran's Supreme National Security Council said Tuesday the strait would not reopen until the United States meets all Iranian conditions. This does include unfreezing assets, giving compensation, and ending the war. Yesterday, U.S. forces disabled a Panama-flagged vessel that ignored warnings in the Gulf of Oman about the ongoing U.S. naval blockade. CENTCOM said an MH-60 Navy helicopter fired 2 Hellfire missiles into the ship's engine room. Still, the Iranians remain defiant as diplomatic efforts are dragging on.
No one thought that Iran could resist in this way against America, with the Israeli regime accompanying it, and the support of many other countries, including all Western countries and some other countries that we all know, and not bow its head and ultimately force the enemy to ask for negotiations.
Officials in Israel tell Fox News they are preparing a variety of contingency plans for the uncertain days ahead. Guys?
So, Trey, what would you say is the status of negotiations? I see on Al Jazeera English that mediators are pushing for the U.S. and Iran to start talking directly again, and Pakistan is the one behind it. Pakistan's a problematic ally who's very close with Iran. So, your thoughts about this? Because we're not getting any positive vibes coming from Washington.
At this point, reports indicate zero progress in a broader agreement with Iran. There are ongoing conversations between Iran and Oman about control of the Strait of Hormuz, but as we hear again and again from Iranian officials, they don't appear serious about actually keeping this international waterway open. In the background here, you have the ongoing U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports, and it is costing the Iranian regime hundreds of millions of dollars each day. And this economic pressure is affecting inflation numbers inside of Iran. It's difficult for many of the people there to access the goods that they need because the Iranians aren't even able to distribute general resources to their people. And so as this moves forward, this pressure will continue on the regime in Tehran, and that is one of many levers that the president has to pull on the economic front to pressure Iran to make a good faith deal. On the military front, there are still more than 50,000 U.S. forces staged across the Middle East in preparation if the president decides to return to combat operations. Guys?
All right. Trey Hicks, live for us from Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you very much.
Thanks, Trey.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Gladiator Barley. This will help to bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, help to detoxify your body, and it helps to build muscle. So do some resistance training and take the Gladiator Barley. It's a great way to also improve your immune system and your endocrine system by soaking up those free radicals and keeping that inflammation down. You get added benefits like helping your cardiovascular system and helping with brain function. Because by bringing down that inflammation at the vascular level, soaking up those free radicals, you have less plaque formation. And by soaking up those free radicals and bringing down that inflammation at the brain level, the neurons are healthier. Structural nanosilver toothpaste. This has no fluoride. It has the structural nanosilver to help to neutralize, to improve your oral cavity. It'll whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce inflammation at the gum line, improve your gum line, and with good oral hygiene, you're helping your cardiovascular system too. Amazing how that works. So please go to my store and get the very high quality toothpaste. Again, it has no fluoride in it. Get a few tubes for your household and help support the work that I do. Structural nanosilver gels. You can get it in the tube form or in the quick dispenser called Renew. Use it the same way. You can use it as a daily skincare. You can put it on a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn. That'll help to heal it quicker by about a third of the time quicker. And during the cold season or the allergy season, put it on your hands, lightly coat your nostrils. It'll stay active for 5.5 hours. It's way better than Perel. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver gel. Wait a minute. Abdul El Sayed is talking bad about football?
CNN's K-File has unearthed old YouTube videos from Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed, many of which have been deleted or set to private.
In one video, El-Sayed reportedly expresses his disdain for fireworks, with the article from K-File saying he quoted, quote, cited Detroit's post-fireworks air quality, the chemicals used in fireworks, their potential to trigger PTSD in veterans, and the risk they pose to children and pets. In other since-removed clips, El-Sayed argued that the southern border was not...
Oh, so they don't like fireworks because of all of these other tangential reasons, but what they really don't like is the 4th of July. Oh, once again, these super progressive DSA types, they hate God, country, and family. And if you mess with fireworks on the 4th of July in football, it's a problem. It's a big problem.
Americans' 5 biggest concerns, and lambasted Republicans for focusing on it. In another, he floated replacing the Second Amendment's right to bear arms with a constitutional right to health care.
And in one episode that has not been deleted, El-Sayed showed apprehension about football, citing ethical concerns about its safety risks and linking the sport's ethos to slavery and manifest destiny. Following the report, El-Sayed's campaign suggested he doesn't hold all those same views that he did in the deleted videos, and a campaign spokesperson said, quote, Abdul is the former captain of his high school football team, loves Michigan football on Saturdays, and celebrates the 4th of July with fireworks like the next Michigan.
Oh, let me get this straight. So he loves 4th of July now, and he loves football, especially U of M football, because he's running for Senate.
Old podcasts don't reflect his beliefs today. All right, okay, maybe. A lot of podcasting, a lot of views, and we could just say, oh, that doesn't represent me. Look, some of those things are more controversial than others.
Right,
like,
exactly.
if you're, if you have reservations about your kid playing tackle football, that's different from saying it's because it's ethos of slavery and blah, blah, which is ludicrous. Fireworks is one of those things. This is why I'm like a libertarian and freedom-oriented in general.
And I've mentioned this many times. The reason why we have these contact sports was to build a team-oriented ethos and to strengthen males for war. It was a way to get in shape, work as a team, and to be competitive. It was to have a citizenry that you could pull from for war. That's what it was for. There's nothing wrong with that.
Obviously, people should be allowed to shoot off fireworks, especially on like a holiday.
Yeah.
If I went my whole life without seeing another firework, I wouldn't care that much. And they do bother dogs, but also dogs are not people, and dogs don't have rights. So you're just barking up the wrong tree. If you're all anti-firework, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not personally I need fireworks all the time. I just see how that's probably a bad and wrong opinion.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
No. I mean, look. First of all, to start off on a personal one, you know the way many people have different sort of irrational phobias. The only one I have is fireworks.
Really?
I'm scared of fireworks.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I'm.
You and my dog.
Let me get this straight. You got these progressives. They're pushing progressive policies as a journalist, and he's afraid of fireworks? What the see what I mean about these beta males? I can't take it anymore.
Caesar, who has passed away subsequently, but would just crawl, would lose his mind during fireworks. Kind of burrow under my skin.
I'm pretty sure this was because, with all due respect to my parents, I was taken to a fireworks display when I was very, very young. I was terrified, and I've never quite got over the fear of that. So I would be more likely to vote for Mr. Elsai if I was in Michigan on his fireworks opposition. But I guess the broader point is, taking quotes from podcasts, I mean, it is...
The big takeaway is that the progressive element of the Democratic Party are a bunch of wusses. They're afraid of fireworks. I mean, what's wrong? What is it? The next thing is he's going to be afraid of turkeys?
It's a valid journalistic inquiry. That said, if you or I stood for office, perish the thought, I'm sure people could flip old episodes of writing in a way that would isolate topics or comments that would be pretty damaging for our electoral hopes.
That's fair. I hold views that are, and I'm sure I do hold views. I just did a radar on how great data centers are, and you're an idiot for not wanting them.
Yeah.
And that's politically unpopular, and I can't be elected. Oh well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think that some of these, like you say, are more controversial than others. And one of the things that people get, I suspect, quite irate about is the constitutional, it would be better to have a right to healthcare than a right to bear arms. I mean, that seems to me like just a sort of dramatic or figurative way of saying, like, you think healthcare is more important than the right to bear arms, which is quite a standard democratic belief. So, I mean, is he really now proposing the whole cumbersome process of changing the Constitution to remove the right to bear arms? I have said it here before, I'd be fine with that, but I think the chances of it happening soon are very limited. He's just using that, it seems to me, as a dramatic device to say healthcare is more important than guns, which most Democrats believe.
Well, sure, but those aren't. It's also not a fair comparison, right? The Bill of Rights is a restriction on government action that infringes on your right to do something. But this is not a right to healthcare would actually create an obligation on people then to provide healthcare services. It's not, so that's different. Like, the right to bear arms just says the government may not stop you from having guns.
You know what? Robbie and the other clown, whatever his name is, they're not saying something really important. The discussions that were taking place between Madison and Hamilton and Jefferson in the Federalist Papers dealing with the Second Amendment and why it's there. It is the firewall for the First Amendment. If you don't have the Second Amendment, you don't have the First Amendment. It's that simple. So if El Sayed wants to abolish the Second Amendment and push for universal health care, don't you think that when they do this constitutional convention and they rewrite the Constitution, that you no longer have the three branches of government and the balance of powers? Now, what's part of the DSA agenda? They want a new constitution. They want a one-party system that's top down. And no one's paying attention to the writings of the thinking process of the actual drafting of the Constitution that, by the way, my ancestor actually signed. I'm a direct descendant of one of the 55 founding members of our great constitutional republic. Now, I have a really hard time to understand this concept that, well, wait a minute here, we're going to rewrite the Constitution and put in universal health care for everybody, but then we're going to take away your Second Amendment, but not realize that the reason why you have the Second Amendment is to protect the First Amendment? Well, wait a minute. When they rewrite the Constitution, they're going to take away the elements of the First Amendment. They're going to take away balance of powers. They want to get rid of the Senate. They want to get rid of the judiciary. They want to get rid of the executive branch. And we're only going to have a House of Representatives or something like it. Then all of a sudden, there's conflict. Because what does that represent? That's what Plato was warning us about in the Republic. That you have this democracy that is happening, but yet you don't really have these balance of powers. So in a pure democracy, there's going to be a lot of infighting. And when that infighting started to take place and mob rule happens, let's say the Democrats take over the House in this scenario where there's no judicial branch, there's no executive branch, there's no Senate. And when you have that situation, now you have a one-party system that can control. Well, how do you break out of that? And we can just look at what has happened in the past with these one-party type systems, like China, like the Soviet Union. That's where DSA wants to go. So Benjamin Franklin, when he was asked, what kind of government do we have? And he said, a republic if you can keep it. Is true today as it was back then. It is so important to make sure that there's not a new constitutional convention. And it is so important to understand the thinking of the time period and why the amendments are there in the sequence that they are. It wasn't ad hoc, these things. There was some deep philosophical reasons that no one's paying attention to now because everyone's TikToking and looking at Kim Kardashian's boob job and not paying attention to what is really important here for a constitutional republic. But, they're on the Hill pontificating, thinking that they really know what's really going on. No, it's deeper. It's way deeper. And so everybody's going to go, yeah, why do we need the Second Amendment? We can just have health care for all. But that would mean that you would have to do a constitutional convention because you can't nullify the Bill of Rights. Because that was part of the whole idea of the states buying into this thing that we call the United States of America. So it has to be ratified at the state level. You have state constitutions and you have the federal constitution. They had to be ratified at every state level. So you really think that this is really going to happen? No, it can't happen. Because if it did, we would have a different constitution. There's the bigger picture here. When they say that's the little seed, oh, you want universal health care for all, and it's going to be written in the Constitution, right? Okay, you can do an amendment to the Constitution, but then that added seed is we should be rewriting the Bill of Rights. Wait a minute here. How are you going to rewrite that? You're going to need a constitutional convention. Now you're starting to see the big picture. Once the DSA or some form of it gets more control of the system, you are going to have problems. Now, it's sort of happening at the judicial branch already. You got a lot of liberals or ultra liberals that are coming from law school, and they have some sort of progressive agenda. They get at the low court level, they get voted in, and they start to kind of erode people's civil liberties and the rule of law. Now, you can appeal And, you know, you can say that process was wrong or that statute's wrong, but that takes money and time. But at the low court level, those judges don't have to follow the law. You can see it on what happens with Trump all the time. With the judges will make a statement and then it's appealed at the appeals court level many times. You have activists. This is what they mean by activist judges. They don't have to follow the law. They make mistakes. They interpret statutes wrong. And then it's usually bounced by the appeals court. If you think I'm wrong, you're not paying attention. There are, at the low level, progressive judges that are not following the rule of law. Now, they can get away with it because they're voted in. These are elected positions. And if they don't like you, you get voted out. There's no real ramification of being a bad judge, not following the law, or having this fringe progressive element in the judgment. But when you start to erode the judicial branch at higher levels, over time, you will lose your freedoms. That's what they should be talking about. Of course not. They can't do that. They can't do that because it's first level thinking. That's what TikTok and X and Facebook and doom scrolling has given us. First level thinking. Not second, third, fourth, or fifth level thinking. Just first level thinking. The Republic is going to fall. Because we got a lot of stupid people out there. And the thing is that these are the educated. These are the educated ones.
Not stop you from practicing a religion. The government may not search your property without a warrant. The government may not compel you to testify. You know, restrictions on government behavior is what is in the Bill of Rights. Right. A right to health care. What would that? Okay.
Yeah. I don't
charge. I mean, I know you want there to be health care.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't find negative versus positive rights, but rights, right, in my libertarian view, is not a good, is not the correct framework for thinking of benefits you want the government to, or services you want the government to provide that are themselves actually require voluntary action on the part of other people.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point, certainly, when it comes to the Bill of Rights and the nature of the Bill of Rights.
Why not saying that most diseases in the United States are self-induced and that we can radically change the health of our nation by actually eating properly, taking the proper supplementation, having a better lifestyle, instead of worrying about the revenues of McDonald's. That's how people need to get healthy. But you don't get healthy by having universal health care. You get healthy by not being a slob, moving around, taking proper supplementation, making sure you drink filtered water, stay away from McDonald's. That's how you get healthy. That's how you lower costs. Get to the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem isn't universal health care. The root cause of the problem is fast food and poor lifestyle. Dumbasses.
I think that, I have said numerous times, excuse me, that I think there should be universal health care, government-supplied health care, as there is in every other developed nation on earth, but not the United States. So, El Sayed stands by his support for Medicare for all. I don't think he's really, at this point in time, seeking to enshrine it in the Constitution. The football thing, I think, is potentially a bit more damaging in a cultural sense. Yeah, exactly. Not like to your point, not in relation to the potential. Right, we all have brain damage and all those concerns, but like the sort of it's somehow tied up with metaphors for manifest destiny. I don't think that we go down well anywhere in the US, but particularly not. You're native Michigan, but they like their football.
Right, we like Michigan football. He is a native Michigan, and he's a University of Michigan person as well.
Right.
Yeah, we like our Wolverines quite a bit. Next up, President Trump vowing to personally fight one of Zoran Mondani's signature proposals. Stay with us.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Boomer Boost. This has 68 nutrients. This has the vitamins and the minerals that you need on a daily basis. Take it every day, but you get a lot of other stuff in here to help to boost up your immune system and your endocrine system, help with brain function, help with the musculature, rev up your metabolism, help with your cardiovascular system, control your A1C levels. Take the Boomer Boost. This is super important. Every day, you can use this as a replacement for your multivitamin. And C60, you can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, and avocado oil. C60 needs to be in an oil for proper absorption, and take it on an empty stomach, a teaspoon a day. I've been doing this for over 10 years. Over 10 years, I've been using C60 to help slow down the aging process. It soaks up free radicals, brings down inflammation at the cellular level and at the tissue level. Your organ systems will perform better. By soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, you have less plaque formation because you have less concentration of oxidized LDL. You'll have better neuron health. And over time, you'll have better connections with those neurons, so you'll be thinking faster. You'll have better memory. Your immune system, your endocrine system will perform better, and your basal layer for your skin will be better, so you have healthier skin cells. It's a very potent antioxidant. It's about 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. One molecule of vitamin C versus one molecule of C60. Take a teaspoon a day every day. It's very powerful, and it works, and it's a great way to slow down aging. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Save some money because there's inflation out there. Annualized at about 3.4%. Use discount 5 to save some money. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and don't be a communist. This great nation is based on capitalism. Support capitalism.
All right, the battle for the future of the Democratic Party is playing out in real time. You got a moderate Democrat, David Crowley, narrowly beats DSA-backed Francesca Hong in Wisconsin. Meanwhile, in Minnesota, Progressive Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan wins the Democratic Senate primary over the establishment candidate. Now the big test for the socialist surge will be Florida next week, when you got Congressman Jared Moskowitz against DSA-backed opponent Oliver Larkin, who's denying accusations of anti-Semitism, while the co-chair of the DSA struggles to answer basic questions on how to, quote, free Palestine. What, in fact, is the position of DSA?
Yeah, so our position is a free Palestine with the capital in Jerusalem. And so I think that could be safely read as a one-state solution.
So the Camp David...
Let me get this straight. A one-state solution. So the DSA wants the Palestine, the Palestinians to actually rule Israel. Like that's going to happen. You think the Jews are going to allow that to happen? No, that's never, ever going to happen. It's either, every last man standing type, Armageddon type situation, and then they want a capital in Jerusalem. Really want to own the Temple Mount? One state solution? Really? Okay, all right. We'll see how that works. All right, so geopolitically, that doesn't seem to be feasible. All right, next policy from the DSA.
being negotiated at the beginning of the century under the Clinton administration, had the Palestinians accepted it, that would have satisfied you.
Good question. I need to look at what the actual specifics there were. I don't know them off the top of my head.
Let me get this straight. So she wants a one-state solution, but she doesn't know anything about the peace accord that Clinton was trying to broker with Yasser Arafat and Barack, what was his name? The leader of Israel at the time. Mubarak or something like that. But Yasser Arafat said, no go, I don't want it. Could have had a two-state solution. Could have had, there could have been peace in the region, but Yasser Arafat knew better. Why? Because he was getting funded. You gotta remember, what did Yasser Arafat represent? This PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, getting funded by Iran. And then those offshoots were Hezbollah and Hamas. But she doesn't know better. Really? Well, wait a minute here. The DSA chair that's pushing a policy of from the river to the sea, one state solution, doesn't know some of the political history of the peace accords in the region from these different presidents. You would think that these people would be more educated. Oh, wait a minute. They're so educated that they're communists. Communists with force blinds on. There's a lot that don't understand. Like capitalism.
Let's bring in Ben Shapiro, host of the Ben Shapiro Show. And this interview is the biggest train wreck ever, and she does not even realize it.
I'm not a big fan of Ben Shapiro, but I haven't seen this video. I'm not a big fan of Ben Shapiro at all. But it is very important to push back against the DSA. Not because of Israel, but because they want to nullify the Constitutional Republic of the United States. That is much bigger of an issue than Israel. So let's listen to Ben Shapiro. I think we'll see. Let's see what he has to say.
At what she's saying, and she said October 8th, would you be there protesting after the October 7th attack in New York City with Dolores Chevrolet, who won this? And she said, yeah, I would have been there. Why? Because they were in an open-air prison in Gaza. They had no choice to kill 1,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, the DSA is an anti-American, anti-Western organization. That is what they are at their essence. Their basic argument is that capitalism itself is what drives imperialism and colonialism and racism and settler colonialism and all the buzzwords that they learn at their Columbia undergrad classes or NYU undergrad classes. And the Democratic Party is ingesting this stuff wholesale. The only question for the Democratic Party is, are they fully willing to go all the way DSA, or just sort of pretend DSA? Progressives who aren't quite openly DSA mostly agree with the DSA, but just don't say the quiet part out loud. The Senator Francesca Harangue, Wisconsin, is that she was saying all the quiet parts out loud, and also she has the Judge Doom eyes, right? I mean, she was a very weird candidate. She had this strange affect, and so many mainstream Democrats and Bernie didn't endorse her. But I think people are taking the wrong message from what happened in Wisconsin last night. The reality is that if Bernie had endorsed Francesca Harangue, she'd be the nominee right now.
No question. And she must have had a double-digit lead until all this scrutiny came down. But in comes the soon-to-be former Governor Evers to pull Crowley out, who had dropped out before, and drags him across the finish line. Yeah. So that would have been panic time for Democrats.
Well, I think that the Democrats are coming to an uneasy coalition with the DSA. They mostly agree with the DSA, but they don't want the DSA picking the most psychotic candidates. They want them picking the second most psychotic candidate. So Abdul al-Sayed in Michigan, terror supporter, totally fine. Francesca Harangue, bridge too far. Graham Plattner, totally fine until it turns out he's a little rapey. And at that point, then they decide, okay, well, we can't get on the full Graham Plattner bandwagon. And so What they're doing right now is sort of a further version of what we saw in 2020 when the Democratic Party activated to stop Bernie Sanders from getting the nomination, and then Joe Biden proceeded to ingest most of Bernie Sanders' platform and turn it into policy.
Well, what isn't happening in real time is Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi were both saying Flanagan should lose. We're going for the other candidate. And the other candidate, who was a lieutenant governor in the middle of this fraud scandal in Minnesota, that had the sitting governor say, I'm not running for re-election, and they still lost by 11 points. The establishment has no pull.
That's right. The establishment understands that all of the energy is with the psychotics in the party, and they have no systemic immunity to the psychotics in the party. And so the only question for them is, how do they negotiate the terms of their surrender? And again, the reason that Francesca Hahn, who is the crazy person in Wisconsin, the reason she did not win is not because a bunch of Democrats mobilized in her favor. The reason she did not win is because Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and AOC did not endorse the psychotic in Wisconsin. So that was up to Bernie. He was the changing factor there, which means he's the one who's in the driver's seat.
I want you to hear Alva Larkin, who's going against Jared Moskowitz next week. And Jared Moskowitz, by the way, a liberal.
Yes.
No doubt about it. He's not pro-Trump. He's not a moderate. He's a liberal. But he's being primary like Dan Goldman's being primary. So watch this.
I think that Israel should be a secular and democratic state with equal rights for all people. And the current configuration of the state of Israel is a religious supremacist one that privileges Jewish citizens above Palestinians. Israel has been rightfully attributed as committing a genocide and apartheid. If it were up to me, I do not think that we should be aiding and abetting a genocide by either providing taxpayer-funded weaponry or selling it.
This is a common refrain.
It is. I mean, all of that is lies. Obviously, 20% of Israel's citizenry is Arab and Palestinian. The Palestinians he's talking about are governed by the Palestinian Authority or by Hamas, who they actually elected in the Gaza Strip back in 2005. And obviously, there was no genocide in the Gaza Strip by any stretch of the imagination. But this has become the talking point. And the reason that it has become the talking point is because every argument that the DSA makes about Israel is an argument they actually make about America. When they say that Israel is a settler colonialist state, what they mean is that the West is a settler colonialist regime. America is a settler colonialist state by the same exact argument. When they suggest that Israel committed a genocide in Gaza, they will say the same thing about America. America genocided the Native Americans. America is responsible for all of the genocides happening all over the world. They say all those things behind closed doors. The only question is whether they say those in public. And that's why Gaza has become such a litmus test for them. There's a thing happening 8,000 miles away in a way different from what they are saying is happening over there. But it's a litmus test because if you are willing to say the false thing over and over and over, then this gives you moral credibility points to the left that truly despises the West. This is the distinguishing factor of the DSA. It is the distinguishing factor of the far left. I think that when the right, when conservatives, when normies look at them and say, man, these people just hate capitalism, understand. It's not just that they hate capitalism. They despise America. That is the key feature. Abdul El-Sayed despises America. Zohran Mamdani despises America. And Alva Larkin despises America.
I can't. I wish I could put a counter argument out there, but there is none. If you just look at what they say and what they've said in the past and what they've deleted, there's no other conclusion you can make. Ben Shapiro, thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
I appreciate it. Meanwhile, straight ahead.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming.
I'm going to play a video, this live from Bloomberg. It is balance of power, and they're talking about core inflation comes subdued, easing pressure on the Fed. Now, what is interesting is how they phrase it. U.S. core inflation comes subdued. But wait a minute. The inflation's high. It's at 3.4%. And it actually, when you take out energy and food, it's still too high, above the 2% target. So the Federal Reserve needs to raise rates, not lower rates. But Bloomberg believes in more monetary expansionism. They want to print more money because that will fuel the machine of finance and derivatives. So they spin a story where the Fed should actually raise rates, but yet they're saying no, the Federal Reserve might not. They need to hold back, easing the pressure on the Fed. No, the annualized inflation is at 3.4%. That's a problem. Rates need to go up, or inflation needs to go down. Which one? It's classic Bloomberg.
We'll leave that to another show. Shelter prices went up just a tick, services up 2 ticks.
We put it together with the president of the American Action Forum. He's the former director of the Congressional Budget Office, and now with us live here on Bloomberg. Douglas Holtz-Eakin, welcome back, sir. It's good to see you. Are you surprised that we're not taking a victory lap here today? This actually seems like pretty good news all the way around.
I am a bit surprised. The White House gets these data the day before. So they got the data yesterday at something like 4 or 5 o'clock, and they've had a lot of time to figure out what messaging they want to surround this, the data release. So the silence is really odd. I don't understand it. It falls into this larger puzzle that you can ask the political experts, which is, when are the Republicans going to have some sort of unified messaging heading into the midterms? They want to talk about the economy, but they don't. So I really, I'm confused by that. Having said that, I don't think this is the greatest report in the history of CPIs. Yes, it's the best in 5 years, but that was when the core was going up, heading to a height of 5.6%. This is not getting back to 2 yet again. And
see,
if you look at the key
here,
the key is that both in June and
needs
July,
to raise rates.
Shelter inflation was extremely soft, and I don't think we want to sort of bet the ranch on shelter inflation staying as subdued as it has been. So, it's good that it's not going up. Agreed. It still means the prices are going higher, and that means that your paycheck has to cover even more, and wages aren't rising as fast as prices. So that's the horse race that matters, and that's the one that's going to show up, I think, at the ballot box.
All right, well, that's a sober reading on things, Douglas, and somebody's got to do it. So does it change your view on the Fed? Because the market is treating this as good news following that weaker than expected jobs report, because they think it pulls them off the hiking trail here.
No, Fed needs to raise rates.
It doesn't change my view of the Fed. This is a piece of data. It's an important piece of data. They're going to get one more CPI and 2 readings on the PCE price index before the next decision. They'll see another jobs report. So they've got a dual mandate, inflation and employment. They're going to have to balance those. And we've seen them do a balancing that's different than the market expects. And you can't rule that out one more time.
I know the core is the important number here if you're the Federal Reserve, but oil and gas going back up. Douglas, could a lot of this be reversed by the time we see the next CPI?
Well, one of the reasons we have a core measure is that it takes out the volatile food and energy pieces, and that gives you the best predictor of the overall CPI in the future. But that's the point. Energy is volatile. It could go back up quite easily. And the president's statement notwithstanding, I'd say what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz is far from settled. And the outlook for global oil supply is far from settled. And 83 days is a political eternity. Anything could happen in that.
It's really interesting. So how are you feeling about this capital gains story? And by the way, I get a kick out of this because this is banner headline that, Trump is looking to cut your capital gains. This was from like a Larry Kudlow interview in which he referred to a conversation that he had with President Trump. Okay, that said, if Donald Trump pulls this out here, he says he recently talked about indexing capital gains, meaning taxes would be applied on gains adjusted for inflation. Does that actually give you something to run on, Douglas? And I mean, is it good politics? Is it good policy? Because I'm guessing that when you take a look at the line on the ledger there that brings us to deficit spending, you might have a palpitation when we start adding more to this. What's your thought?
I'm going to make myself the least popular guest ever on your show.
I love it.
First of all, this is not news. I worked at the White House in 1989, and in 1989, Treasury officials floated the idea of the president unilaterally indexing capital gains for inflation without getting legislation. And it didn't happen for 2 reasons. Number one, it's never been clear the president has the authority. Number two, it turns out to be devilishly difficult to do, and the Treasury officials ultimately just throw up their hands and say, no, we can't pull it off. So my forecast, capital gains taxation will be the same at the end of this year as it was at the end of last year. And this will be a trial balloon to see if people care about this. Yeah. But it's really just a campaign tactic because I don't think they can really get it done.
He's also suggesting exemptions for sales of homes worth $2 million or less from capital gains taxes. He says, quote, the boss is very interested in this idea. Douglas, how about you?
I'm interested in that idea. the Congress decided and signed into law that we're going to have a maximum amount of tax on housing capital gains. We're going to exempt 500,000. It's not indexed for inflation. So at a minimum, we want to raise that and index it for inflation. And in the reality, given sort of the distribution of wealth and homeownership, you can probably get rid of the taxation of capital gains and houses and not have a big impact on the U.S. fiscal situation. And that would be good housing policy when we need it, and certainly politically popular.
God forbid you bring a little relief to the housing market. Douglas Holtz-Eakin, are you having a good summer? Like, are you going to the air shows on the mall? Or did you do the UFC fight? You going to IndyCar? They're sweeping out Pennsylvania Avenue for an IndyCar race.
I know. My office is on Pennsylvania Avenue. This is an enormous inconvenience.
It's insane. They're going to be driving 185 miles in. Did you see they welded the manhole covers shut, Douglas? And you may as well take a vacation for a couple of weeks. Yeah.
I plan to attend from far, far away. That's my current approach.
I'll have more on this.
It's not my favorite thing.
Okay, well, this is a tough summer for some people living.
See, you have these people that don't even like motorsports. It's amazing how the masculinity in society has gone down. The testosterone levels have gone down. It's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Washington. For others, it's a tourist attraction. Douglas, thanks for coming back. We missed you. Douglas Holtz-Eakin with us live on Bloomberg. Straight from Pennsylvania Avenue at the American Action Forum. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington, where, they welded the manhole.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the collagen. This will help with your skin, your nails, your hair, musculature, bone density, even your joints. Really important. Take it every day. This is a month's supply. If you have pain, such as arthritic pain, muscle pain, tension headache, a sprain, a bruise, to stop the pain, take the Super Strong Relief, right? The Super Strong Relief. It's a new product. It's a topical. You rub it on the area that you have the pain, and it cuts the pain very quickly, within 90 seconds. It's very effective, and it's great for individuals that have a sports injury or have arthritis or even a tension headache. So please go to my store and get the Super Strong Relief. And for individuals that have arthritis or sports injury and need to remodel that joint, take the collagen. Collagen you take daily, and you do these, it's just simple exercises where you open up the joint up to the point of pain and go a little bit farther, count to 30 seconds, and then stop. Do that 3 times. Do that every day. And what you're doing through that exercise, you're creating a micro environment to help to remodel. Now, collagen will help that process along. It's going to help to recruit collagen type 2 to remodel the cartilage, and ACAN to remodel the actual joint. It will block EP4, where it will prevent the inflammation. It also blocks MMP3 and MMP13, so the joint doesn't erode, and it blocks the pain gatekeeper NAV 1.7, so you are mitigating the pain. And it also helps to recruit chondroitin and glucosamine. Glucosamine will help to remodel the cartilage, and chondroitin will help to remodel the cushioning of the joint. And over time, you will have a healthier joint, and you will have the ability to articulate with more degrees of freedom, more angular movement. So please go to my store and get the collagen. This stacks really well with the Super Strong Relief. So if you have arthritis, use the Super Strong Relief to reduce the pain. Take the collagen to remodel the joint and do that exercise. Also, collagen stacks really well with the collagen. So please go to my store, take my advice, Get those joints healthier. Take the collagen if you have arthritis or a sports injury. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. That's the end of my broadcast today. Thank you for listening. Share the links, and better yet, get healthy by using the great products that I offer. And these are products that I use on a regular basis. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.